Okay, we are finishing Sefer Shmuel Aleph today, 2 prakim. So we saw yesterday that David, who was sort of hiding out with Achish Melech Gat, so he went down to battle with them against the Jews because he was making believe that he was totally on the side of the Plishtim. But the other Sarnei Plishtim were not too happy about it, so they sent David home. And this Perek Lamed, picks up from there. So David comes back to where they had been living, which is in Tsiklag. Okay, we saw that I think 2-3 prakim ago. And he sees, in his utter horror, he sees that the entire city is burned. Everything in it was taken, including the women, including the children, boys, girls. Everything was taken. So what happened was the Amaleki, the people from Amalek, right? The Amalekites, right, had basically gone on raids and just raided the whole area and took booty from all these different places, including Tsiklag. And Tsiklag, they totally burnt up, and again, they took everything. So David and his men come back from Achish, and they see their city, and they are dumbfounded. They are beside themselves, to the point where everyone just breaks down and starts crying. Can you imagine? Their wives, their children are all gone. Everything. Totally gone. So, including David's 2 wives, right, Achinoam and Abigail, they're gone. Simply gone. And it was a great pain they were going through and suffering. And to the point where the people that were with David wanted to stone him. Not that it was really his fault, but that they were so beside themselves, they didn't know what to do, so they wanted to stone David. And then it says at the end of Pasuk, Vav vayitchazek David b'Hashem Elokav. David realized, okay, enough crying, and he strengthens himself with God, meaning he says, okay, the only one I can rely on right now is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And he says to Evyatar, if you remember, he is the son of Achimelech, the only one who escaped Nov Ir HaKohanim. And he says to him, give me the ephod, which is what had the Urim V'Tumim in it. I need to ask Hashem whether we should go out to battle. And he asks Hashem, and Hashem says, go. You will catch up to them, you'll reach them, and you will be able to save all that was lost. So David goes with 600 men, and they reach a place called Nachal HaBesor. Does that sound familiar, guys? You know that Beit Shemesh, Ramat Beit Shemesh is all Nachals, right?
Oh, yeah.
Nachal and Gedi, this is right. All the streets are Nachal something. So one of the streets in Beit Shemesh, Ramat Beit Shemesh, is Nachal HaBesor. Okay, so they get to a Nachal, some brook called HaBesor, and 200 of the men stay behind. The Mefarshim say they were tired, they just couldn't go on. So David goes with his 400 remaining men, and they continue running after the Amalekim to catch up with them. While they're on their way, they find a Mitzri man, a man from Egypt. They could tell, I guess, the way he was dressed, whatever, that he was from Mitzrayim, and they see him, he's like half dead. And they quickly take him, and they give him food and drink, and he finally comes back to himself. And David said, who are you? What are you doing here? What's your story? And the young lad says, I am a Mitzri. I was a servant to one of the Amalekites, and I was sick for 3 days, and he just left me here to die. They just, enough trouble with this guy. They left him in the middle of the desert, and they ran off. And he tells them how they had gone and raided all these different places in Yehuda and the Plishtim, like these Amalekites, didn't differentiate. They raided the Pelishti camps. They raided the Jewish camps in Yehuda, and he tells them that they burnt up Tsiklag, which was David's place, of course. We just saw. And David said to this man, he said, "Will you bring me down? Will you show me where they are?" And the man said, "Only if you swear that you will not kill me, you will not hurt me, and you will not give me back into the hands of my master." David, of course, agrees, and he shows him where they are. In Pasuk Tet Zayin, he brings them there, and he sees all these Amalekites are just sitting there, enjoying, eating, drinking, all the spoils of war that they had gotten. And David, Pasuk Yud Zayin, begins to attack them. And it says, "Vayakem David mehaneshef v'ara erev l'macharatam," mamash from one evening to the next evening. Some say even more than that, till the next morning. Whatever it was, however long it happened, for at least a day, David is just killing them out. And the only ones who escaped, basically, he got everybody. He killed all the Amalekites except for 400 young men who were able to escape on camels. So David saved all that he had taken, that the Amalekites had taken, his 2 wives, all the children. They were crying about that their children were taken and their wives. All of them were saved. None of them had been killed. David and his men were able to restore everything that had been taken, plus take a lot of the booty that the Amalekites had taken themselves from different cities. And David comes back, so they finish and they come back. They're on their way back, and they reach the 200 men who had stayed behind at Nachal HaBesor. And amongst his 400 men, David's 400 men, there were a bunch of, the way the Tanakh calls them, is Ish Ra U'Belial, evil. Belial, we've seen Belial Shamayim, right? People, not God-fearing people, said, "Oh, you know what? These people didn't come and fight with us. They don't deserve any of the spoils. They don't deserve any of the booty. We are just going to take it all of ourselves. All we'll do is give them back their wives and their children, and that's it. Nothing more than that. The rest, we're gonna take for ourselves." And David says to them, "Don't do such a thing. That's terrible. God gave us this great gift of all this victory and all these spoils. We're going to share with them." And then he says something very, very important. And he says, look at Pasuk Chav Dalid, "Umi yishma lechem l'davar." Who's going to listen to you people about this? Not to share it with these people. Ki kechelek hayored b'milchama. The same portion that people will actually go and fight on the front lines. This is important for you guys who are going to go into the army. Ukechelek hayoshev al kelim yachtav yachloku. Those who stay behind and have to guard the camp and guard all the weapons and the kelim and all the stuff that they have. They're also part of the battle. What do you think? What would happen if everyone had to go to war? So other people would come and take all their stuff, and they'd come back and they'd have nothing, right? You need in battle. You need different people have different jobs. Some people are the fighters. They're the kravi, as they say in the Israeli army. They're kravi, and other people are not kravi. They sit behind the computers and they do other things. But they all deserve a portion in the victory. They all deserve a portion, and that is a klal. In fact, what was just seen in 2 weeks ago's Parsha Lech Lecha, when Avram defeated the 4 kings, right? So he also split the booty with those who had stayed behind and watched. And in fact, Chazal learned from Pasuk Chav Hey, Vayhi mehayom ahu v'mala, and it was, now the simple pshat is from that day and on, Vayisimel l'chol kol mishpat, it became a rule, L'Yisrael al hayom hazeh, till this day. But the word v'mala doesn't sound right. It should be v'hala, not v'mala. V'mala means from before. And Chazal say that Be'emet David, this wasn't his own invention. He learned it from Avram Avinu, from 2 weeks ago's Parsha. It's already been This is an established rule that people who don't actually fight in the battle but are part of the war effort, they also deserve reward. The Perek ends with just a list of different people in Yehuda, Ziknei Yehuda, the elders of Yehuda that David shared his spoils with. When he came back, he was so happy and he just gave out his spoils to all these different people. The Zikanim that were in all these different places, Beit El, Ramot Negev, Yatir, and there's a whole list of names of places. And it ends with the Pasuk Lamarav, V'lasher bechevron, right? This is Parshat Chayei Sarah, Chevron, right? U'lechol ha'mekomot asher yitalech sham David, Hud v'anashav, they shared their spoils with them. Or they gave a portion, they gave a gift to these people also. Okay? The video's working?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see it? Yeah. Good. Okay. We're up to Perek Lamed Aleph, the last Perek. You ready? This is a very sad Perek. The Plishtim getting back to the war. Don't forget that the Plishtim had been gathering against the Jewish people, the Jewish army, and they simply rout the Jewish forces, and it's really bad. They're running after Shaul and his children, and they actually catch the sons of Shaul, Yehonatan, the great Yehonatan who was so close with David, and his brother Avinadav and Malkishua. They are all killed by the Plishtim. Don't forget what Shmuel said to him, right? You and your sons are all going to die in the same day. You're all going to die in this battle, and that's exactly what's happening. The war is getting worse and worse, and the arrow, the archers, thank you, the archers catch up with Shaul. He realizes that he's in big trouble, and he says to his Nosei Kelim, which is his assistant who carries his weapons for him, he says, take out the sword and stab me. I don't want these Arelim, these uncircumcised non-Jews to kill me, and they're going to torture me, and they'll make fun of me, and it's better if you kill me. But this lad is too scared to do so. He cannot bring himself to kill the king of Israel, his master. So Shaul himself takes a sword and falls upon it, meaning basically commits suicide. He kills himself. And the Nosei Kelim, this boy, sees that Shaul is dead. So he too falls on his sword. He can't see, he can't stand to see such a thing. And he himself also kills himself. So on that day, Shaul, his 3 sons, and his Nosei Kelim, his lad, all died together. There's an issue. I'm just going to bring up the question so that you will understand what I'm talking about tomorrow. Yeah, I think it'll be tomorrow when we read the beginning of Shmuel Bet, because we're going to see that David, this kid, this Amaleki, this Ger Amaleki, this convert from Amalek, comes to David and tells him how Shaul told him to kill him, and he killed him, and whatever. And seemingly that contradicts this, because we don't see this Ger Amaleki. It says that made Shaul died because he fell on his own sword. So how could it say that he died, and then in the next Perek, in Shmuel Bet, we're going to see that, no, someone else killed him. So there are those who say that when it says Ki made Shaul here, that Shaul was dead, it doesn't mean he was dead. He was almost dead, and Bemet, this Ger Amaleki, came and killed him. But others say that no, he was really dead. But this Ger Amaleki, which we'll see again tomorrow, was just trying to get on David's good side. He thought David hated Shaul, because don't forget, Shaul was pursuing him, running after him for the longest time. He thought this would be the greatest thing. He'll find favor in David's eyes by saying, oh, I killed your enemy. But in reality, he didn't, because made Shaul. Shaul, as it says here, already died. But as we're going to see tomorrow, David was not too thrilled by the fact that he said, how could you possibly have lifted your hand against the Mashiach Hashem? We saw that many times. David prevented people from killing Shaul, even though Shaul was running after him. How could you lift your hand against the Mashiach Hashem? And it ends up, this is a spoiler alert, right? That David ends up killing this Ger Amaleki for what he said. So this guy made a big mistake, thinking that he was going to find favor in David's eyes. All right, we'll see that tomorrow. So all the Jews around in the surrounding areas see that the Plishtim are routing the Jewish people, they're defeating the Jewish people, the army, and they all just leave their towns, and the Plishtim take over these towns. Basically, this is a terrible, terrible loss for the Jewish people. And the next day, the Plishtim come back to the battlefield in order to, this was, I guess, accepted practice, to come and see what they could find, on the dead bodies. Maybe there's some gold, maybe there's some silver, some good clothing, to take the spoils of war. And they find Shaul and his 3 sons lying there dead, and they cut Shaul's head off, and they take off all of his battle gear, and they send it throughout Eretz Plishtim to basically to show, see, we won, we beat their king, we beat them, and they put the kelim, meaning the garments of Shaul, in their house of Avodah Zarah, Ashtarot, and they take the bodies of Shaul and his sons, and they hang them by the door, by the wall of Beit Shan, right? Beit Shan. You've heard of that? Well, here it's without an aleph. I assume it's the same place. Beit Shan, right? And here the Sefer or the half a Sefer, let's call it, Shmuel Aleph, ends with a very positive, good act that the people of Yavesh Gilad do. So Yavesh Gilad, if you remember, Shaul had saved them. So they heard about this. They heard that the bodies of Shaul and his sons are hanging there by the walls of the city. They go out all night. They take a bunch of soldiers and they go out all night and they take down Shaul's body and the body of his sons, and they burn them. We'll get to that in a second. It's a big problem. Vayisrefu otam sham, the second to last pasuk. Vayikhu et atzmotehem, they take their bones, they bury them tachat ha'eshel. Ha'eshel is a type of a tree. We saw that in last week's parsha. Vayita eshel bever shava, right? They bury them in underneath this tree in Yavesh, and vayatsumu shirat yamim, and they fast for 7 days. So the question is, what does it mean they burned their bodies? I mean, anybody knows that in Jewish law, you're not allowed to burn a body, right? That's what's it called? Cremation is a very bad thing to do to a Jewish body. We believe in only burial. So many Mefarshim, Targum Yonatan, Rashi, Radak, and others say that they didn't burn the bodies, they burnt all their possessions, everything they had with them, the clothing and whatever, although it's a little bit difficult to say that because we said the Plishtim took that and put that somewhere else. So that's what they say. And that's actually a well-known minhag, that you burn the possessions of a king, the clothing of a king. You don't want anybody to say, oh, he died, so let's give it out to poor people. No. There's something very special about the clothing and the kelim, the utensils of a king, that you don't want to, someone else to use it, someone on a lower level to use it. So therefore, they burnt all that. Or some say, the Radak and Mitzudas David say, they did burn their flesh because their bodies had rotted so badly that it was so disgusting they had to burn the flesh off of the bones. That's another pshat. Or, listen to this one, who says this? The Radak, also in a different pshat. And the Malbim, they say, Sreifa here doesn't mean with fire. It means that they embalmed them, and the way they do that is use different chemicals, and the chemicals burn. They're very sharp, and therefore they burn the flesh because of their sharpness, and that's what it meant they did. They embalmed their bodies, and then they buried them, and that is the unfortunate end of Shmuel Aleph and Shmuel Bet. We will begin tomorrow. We go back to 3 parakim a day.